Welcome to the space for transformational leaders to unleash their magic, see better client results, work lighter, and live source. Hello and welcome. This is Darla Ledoux. I'm here with Katherine Bird. Hi, Kat.
Hi.
So good to be here together. I am going to introduce you for a minute. So Katherine Bird is amazing, as you'll soon discover. She is a mentor and trainer of healers, coaches, and spiritual practitioners. She's a shamanic channel guide and transformational consciousness coach. She teaches energetic and emotional alchemy practices and supports people through the process of healing themselves and bringing their magic to the world. So you can already tell why she's here. She's passionate about helping those who are going through spiritual, energetic, and shamanic awakenings to develop the tools and skills they need to expand sustainably. She is committed to inspiring an authentic spiritual path and living a bold life of service. So I'm just going to share a little bit. I was introduced to Katherine when a mentor I was working with knew I needed some physical grounding and clearing and practices to not take on the weight of what my clients were dealing with. And she referred me to you. And I've taken, I think, all of your programs and worked with you privately and been on retreat. And so I consider this an endorsement as well. And this series is we interview sourced leaders. And so, Kat, I consider you an honorary sourced leader. And so I want to start by, first of all, just welcome and tell us a little bit about how you came to this path.
Well, I mean, in the briefest way possible, maybe, I had a very intense spiritual awakening. And not one that I really felt a lot of control over at the time. I didn't have a lot of context for it. I didn't know what was happening to me. It wasn't something I was necessarily really seeking in the way that it occurred. And so through that process, I had to do a lot of work. I had to do a lot of work on myself, on healing my wounds from my childhood and my physical body, and working with my energy, which was very challenging at the time, having a lot of really intense spiritual experiences that came on very rapidly. And I knew that I was supposed to be a healer. And so I started on this path of a lot of
You knew that to begin with, or you knew that when this started happening?
No, when this started to happen, I got this message, and so I listen, I get these messages, I get things that come in, and I really listen. And so when that happened, I knew that I wasn't ready for that. And that I needed to work on myself. And so I started studying with a lot of different people and all kinds of modalities, and really exploring a lot of physical movement practices, energy practices, because that's what helped stabilize me, because I was a little unstable.
So yeah, question. So when you said it was an intense spiritual awakening, like something happened in your life, or you started hearing voices, or like,
what happened for me was that I had this awareness and this, this message that came in that what I was doing was not what I was supposed to be doing. And then I needed to basically quit everything and figure out who I was. And so in that process, I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to be like, who am I? Who am I? And keep asking that question, and just sit and ask that question, who am I? And give myself a lot of space to do that. And I thought, well, I should probably do some meditation. And I started to sit in meditation, and things started to happen. And I started to have a lot of physical experiences of shaking and trembling, sweating, and things got very intense for me with channeling and visions and voices and lots of things that were happening that I didn't have any context for that.
Yeah.
And so for me, not everybody has the experience that I'm talking about. A lot of people will never quite have that experience, but for me, it was very intense. And I think that it was designed that way so that I could find these places of mastery for myself, because then that became so much a part of what I'm here to offer and to bring to people. Yeah. I
didn't know this.
No, you didn't know this? Oh,
no.
Yeah.
I love that story.
I was pretty non-functional out in the real world for quite a while. I quit my job. I had a job at the time that I quit, and I was spending just incredible amounts of time home alone in these practices and trying to figure out what the heck was going on with me.
So I'm sure people listening there's probably some people who are feeling validated because they've had that experience. And then there are probably some people who are like, I don't know if I want that experience. Because I think that, a lot of the people that come into my world are either, they're really tapped in spiritually, but they want to ground in the practical in their business. But a lot are really practical, logical. And all of a sudden this spiritual stuff is opening up. And there can be a fear of like, oh, if I do sit with this in meditation or, do the practices, am I going to become non-functional? Right.
Yeah.
Like, because, for me as an engineer, like I got my gold stars from really being, productive and capable. And so letting that go long enough to hear source can be a little scary.
Absolutely. It is very frightening, because there are moments when you're like, what is happening to me? And I'm shedding everything. I'm destroying my identity. Like who I was before is not who I am now and is not who I'm moving into. And it is very confronting to our ego and who we think we are to let go and to surrender. And, surrender is the only spiritual practice. And letting go and opening and being willing to do that. And I know there were times when I really questioned my sanity. I questioned, what is going to happen to me? How is this going to work out? What am I going to do? How am I going to move forward? But it is this constant stepping into deeper layers of trust and being open to what's coming through us and learning how to listen and to not be afraid, to not let fear run our lives and to take over and to keep us from having that experience of surrender and openness to ourselves, to the divine, to the wisdom and guidance that's moving through us, and to, allow those things to happen. It takes courage.
Yeah.
But it's totally worth it.
Yeah. So we'll talk about that. So, well, that's a good segue actually. So I like to ask everyone, what does it mean to you to live sourced?
For me, it means listening. It means being present with what I'm feeling and what I'm experiencing beyond what my mind is telling me that I need to do or should do, or the way that it should be, or the way that my life should look or be right now, and actually being with what is, and then listening deeply and being in that courageous space of following what I'm hearing, of listening to the guidance that I'm receiving about what to do with my life. And it's not just in our business, of course, it's in every area. It's where do I live and what do I spend my time doing, and who are the people that I spend my time with, and what are the things that I'm caring about enough to put out there, and being willing to listen, even when it doesn't make sense, even when it feels really challenging to my identity or who I think I am, or that I feel fear come up around the unknown, and being willing to step into that space of the unknown over and over and over again and get skilled at it.
And if we could imagine that everybody was living that way, what would be different in the world, in your view?
Well, I think that our, we have all of these things that people are struggling with so deeply, with depression, anxiety, with overwhelm, with working at jobs that they hate, at being in relationships that aren't good for them, at contributing to their own personal destruction through addictions and bad habits, and being checked out of their life, being checked out of their body. And I think that a lot of those things that people are trying to either escape from or get medicated enough to manage themselves inside of that kind of life, that we would see people be relieved of some of their internal suffering. And then also we would see people create and do things that they're really passionate, like the truth of what they're really passionate about, the things that don't make sense. When you see people who are, writing that book, or they're traveling someplace that is so like, oh gosh, I don't know if I would feel safe doing that, or they're out just figuring out a way to help people in not getting overwhelmed by the how big our problems are, but they're like, I'm just going to do this thing because this is where I belong. I think we would see people, be themselves more, and maybe stop needing to fit in so much.
I love that. It makes me think of so many different conversations I've had where at the end, it comes to like, you have your thing to do and I have my thing to do, and they have their thing to do, and if we each do the thing we're called, it kind of works itself out, versus feeling like we should somehow be playing all the roles.
We should not be playing all the roles, and we should not all be doing the same thing. If we think about it in this way of this web of consciousness over the planet that we are all connected to, that we are all these points on this web of consciousness, and that we are all capable of being a part of a much larger transformation in humanity that is moving in a positive direction. But we can't do every one of those points. We have to commit to our point and commit to our part in that transformation. And that transformation starts first and foremost with ourselves, in liberating ourselves internally, and liberating ourselves from our faulty belief systems, our fears, our self-judgments, our shame, everything that is holding us back from being truly authentic. And in that, we are automatically, no matter what we're doing, like the actions we're taking, no matter what we're doing, we're automatically contributing to something really powerful.
Yeah. It's the energy and the beingness.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So you have all kinds of tools in your toolkit, and I want to share some of them and talk a little bit deeper about your work. How do you learn to trust your inner voice and your guidance more? So, because that's really the key to being sourced. How do you learn that?
Well, I think one piece is practice. You have to practice it. You have to listen and receive, and then go, okay, I am going to do that, and then see the results, and to trust it and notice, and then remind ourselves, oh, remember when you did really listen to yourself about that thing, and remember how much, look at how much better your life is now that you did that really hard thing that you knew was the right thing. for you, but was maybe really challenging. You know, these things that we do when we're like, gosh, I just know I have to leave this job. I have to leave this relationship. I have to go to this place. I have to put my work out there. And we see the result, and the result is maybe not immediately that we're like the most successful or even the happiest, but we see the results that start to happen in our life, and things build on that. So I think it's a state of practice. I think it's a state of being willing to be quiet and be silent and to be alone. And that willingness to not need to fill the space all the time, to give source room to enter into our lives. So taking space for, even if you're not into meditation, it's okay. You know, most people actually aren't that into meditation. Let's face it, not that fun for most of us, but it's like, instead being willing to take some space in the morning to sit and journal, or just sit and have a cup of tea and do nothing. You know, light some incense, light a candle, pet your cat, whatever it takes to get yourself in a calm place and enter into a space of nothingness, to give source that moment to enter.
I'm thinking of, you know, here we teach the anatomy of a transformation, and the heart of it is called the sourced experience. And the process is release, receive, rise. And so the rise is like, you have this new energy that you want to show up in, this new way of being, that you're like, it's a soul truth. Like, if I just be this, the world works for me, kind of like you were saying. And it's the beingness. And then a lot of times people will get that and they'll think, okay, I got that now, next. As opposed to taking time to be with it, to integrate it, to see what is happening in their body and their energy field as they try on the new energy, and be able to expand and hold it. And I think that's something that I really learned through your work and the practices you teach, is that it can be a super subtle moment of noticing, you know, the energy move from here to here, like an inch, and like that is a significant part of the integration. And so I'm curious if you can speak to that a little bit, because, you know, before I met you, I was doing meditation, I was in sitting practice, I was learning to not take action until I got a clear yes, which was hard, right? There was a lot of inaction, and there was a lot of like my ego going crazy of like, how can you not do something? But I learned from you movement practices, qigong, like physical practices that actually helped things to integrate and move faster than just sitting, though I still just sit. So can you talk a little bit about that? I know you have so many different modalities that you bring together.
Yeah. So I've been doing movement practices, somatic practices since the beginning of my journey, because I had to. And every time I struggle, I come back to them in different ways and learn new things. And the thing is about it means to be sourced, it really is being embodied. It's being inside of your body and capable of listening to the cues and the sensations of the body. And to be able to, like you said, feel the energy move. And when we look at how do we integrate these things and how do we work through this process of transformation, which in my perspective, when we look at healing, anytime we're healing something, we're taking things out, we're pulling things away, we're purging, letting go, getting rid of, you know, shedding beliefs, whatever this is, but we're moving energy out, and then there's space. So then we start to call in and bring in new energy and new beliefs and understanding and awareness. When we stack movement and energy practices with our consciousness work and the way that we're transforming our lives on a daily basis, it's so much more effective. It works so much faster and it's so much easier. because you're working with your body, your breath, your nervous system, especially because your nervous system is, you really can only transform as fast as your nervous system is capable of transforming. And so if your nervous system is stuck in your old way of being, your old beliefs and your old kind of trauma body, then it will have a really hard time taking on your new life and new beliefs. And so you have to reprogram your nervous system and your body and your energy bodies, because your energy bodies are holding on to these old beliefs and to the old emotions that are anchoring the beliefs in. But when we start to get into the practices, we're capable of moving a lot of this stuff without thinking about it, without being like, oh, this is the exact memory, or this is the exact belief, or this is the exact thing that I'm working on. Because we're working much deeper at the level of the nervous system, which is then able to help the brain to rewire the way that it's thinking.
And you talked about the energy bodies, which I'm guessing a lot of listeners won't be familiar with. Can you speak to that? So there's like the physical, and then, I always think of that, right, moving the energy out to the different layers of our energy body. Can you speak to that?
So, we have all these layers, and you can do a lot of research and be like, oh, there's 11 layers, there's 100, I don't know how many, different people will say different things. And we can make it very complicated, but you're probably not going to have a personal awareness of a lot of that, of those layers. But you can have a personal awareness of your energy bodies, which, are inside of you as well, and in all of your organs and everything, but they're also around you. So even the awareness that there is a front of your body, there is a back that's going backward, that's moving back and shining backward and to the sides and up and down. So you're not just this physical, you also inhabit an energetic space that is oftentimes full of other people's things, other people's thoughts and beliefs and energies that you've sort of absorbed. It's full of your own beliefs. It's full of your own emotional repressions and stagnations. And so I was talking to someone yesterday, and I was like, it's kind of like, those shows about hoarders. And they go to the guy's house and it's just full of stuff. And the questions are, well, do you need this trash in your house? Like, this is definitely trash. Like, we can all of us on the outside can look at this and go, this is trash. And yet the person is just like, yeah, I need that. I need that in my house, right? And so most of us, we're sort of holding on to a lot of trash that we don't really need, just because we've become accustomed to it. We've become like, well, that's the way that I live. That's the way my house looks. That's part of my identity. And so, through our practices, we can start to kind of just clean the trash out and start fresh.
Love it. So there's some common places where coaches tend to stagnate in their life, in their offerings. What have you seen about that?
Well, I think that we get comfortable, we get accustomed. We build our identity and who we are around something. And it takes something to let go. I feel that some of the reasons that, one of the core reasons that we choose to be coaches, we choose to be practitioners of some kind, is because we have an internal orientation towards transformation. And we can't not transform. But when we get to a place that feels comfortable, maybe we've struggled and we're like, well, I'm finally I'm making enough money to, run my life and support my team and do these things that I had the belief that if I could ever get to this amount of money, I'd be safe. I'd be okay. So I don't want to mess that up. I don't want to destroy that, or I've finally made my name in this one thing, right? I've written the book, I've gotten the website, I've got it all done. Everything's running ahead. And if I just keep doing this one thing for the next forever, 20 years, then I'll be fine. But then there's this yearning that arises for transformation within ourselves, for us to transform again. And I think that it's coaches, not coaches, whatever, it's hard for everybody to choose transformation, to consciously choose to destroy ourselves sometimes and what we've built in order to rise to the next level of who we are. And but I think that it's a little bit of a requirement from time to time.
Yeah, it's the path our soul signed up for.
Exactly. Or why would you be doing this work? Right? You're like, oh, I'm going to help people transform.
Until I get comfortable, and then we'll all stop.
And then it's like, oh, I guess I need to transform. You know, I need to go to the next level. I need to learn new tools, skills, practices. I need to push myself out of my comfort zone again to declare something that I know is the real truth for me.
Yeah. You know, I'm thinking of kind of when I started, you know, coming in as an engineer. Obviously, I have been a lot up here. Actually, there was a point when you were talking earlier, Kat, there was a point where my brain like literally stopped working along my journey. It was like I couldn't hold or track things. It was like my thinking function went offline for a time period. And I had to learn to like function using other senses and other skills, which felt really, really scary, but was also amazing. But back in the beginning, I was, you know, coming into this work, leaving my engineering career, and got into the world of coaching. And there were a lot of male coaches, you know, who had studied under the lineage of old white men, the Bob Proctor and Napoleon Hill, and like that back that way, which is, it's all very mindset and mental. And then I felt so called to be more in my body and to use my body as a healing tool, which is kind of when we met. And I had no concept of that. And I thought, well, I'm going to have to blow up everything to go on this path. And so I'm curious if someone's in that spot where maybe they've been doing it a certain way, they've been providing strategy, or they're, you know, working just with thoughts and beliefs and not the body, but they're starting to feel called to bring the embodiment in. What would you recommend?
I mean, I think this is a really, I love this place for people. I was just working last week with a coach who has been doing, you know, men's coaching and so on, and is really seeing that even though that they had a lot of physical practices doing yoga and breath work and all of these things, it was a lot about managing and trying to fix things in their body, in their mental state, in the anxiety and
like
these different
hacks.
Yeah, like totally, right? It's like the coach hacking things.
Yeah.
And it was like, well, actually, let's really go deeply into sensations and feeling sensations and getting really quiet and feeling and noticing the sensations. And then we'll do some simple things in movement and breath where we're slowing down even more to help to recognize those sensations and feel those sensations, and to feel maybe even the emotions attached to those sensations. So that's generally where people, that's one of the things that keeps them from doing this work. Because when you start to feel sensations in their body, the potentiality is that there might be an emotion there. And that just being with it and feeling it more and more, instead of trying to fix it and feel it less, actually can be the way through it, where that emotion eventually does in some ways dissolve a lot more, because there can be a lot of anxiety in our system just because we're trying not to feel anything.
Yeah.
So I think where people can, it depends on where people are on their journey, right? Some people are very in their head and they're very out of the body, very lacking in embodied awareness or any kind of physical practice at all. And so even just getting on the floor and doing really simple movements and very simple, yoga poses and child pose and connecting the breath into the body and doing movement that the breath is moving with the body. These can be really helpful just to starting to get us into the body. Going to a dance, like doing ecstatic dance or putting on some music in your house and just starting to dance and move your body and starting to pay attention to the things in your body. And these can be the places where we start, but looking at embodiment, somatic techniques, things like Qigong. I teach Qigong because I just find it so effective for people.
Yeah.
And it's such an important practice and understanding of the way that we work elementally in our lives and in our bodies, and the way that we can have a practice that isn't like too hard to do, but it gets us into our energy. Sometimes if your experience of embodiment or practices is just a hot yoga, vinyasa, super intense 90-minute class where you're just like, wow, I sort of hate this. And this doesn't, I'm just not into this. And so I don't want to do this. That's not the only option.
Well, and that can feel like I love a good 90-minute vinyasa class. And it's not the same as, it can be, but you can kind of power through that versus the more subtle movements and the requirement to be present.
Yeah. You can definitely, in these practices, you can push your body to perform, which I think when I was first doing things like yoga, I hurt myself a lot because I'm very bendy. And so I was always pulling muscles. But there was a competitiveness in my mind. There was a performance in my mind that was happening. There was all of this judgment in my mind around it. And so I was missing actually the real deal.
Yeah.
So
you said elemental, you used that word. And I feel like, your 5 elements course is my favorite. Can you just share a little bit about that? And, I know we want to talk about just coaches being more effective as they go through their own transformation. And I'm curious if we can tie this to the elements and that distinction of the elements in some way.
Yeah. Well, I love that that's your favorite course. So that's
I think it gives like my brain like it's like it gives my brain something to consider while my body's moving. Not at the same time, but like, it's like instead of just at random, let me pick a practice, it feels like, okay, what am I feeling elementally today?
Yeah. And I like being able to have practices. So generally when I work with people, I'm able to look at, well, what's going on in your life and what are you dealing with, or what are you trying to cultivate more of, or what are you, trying to move through? And then being able to have practices that feel prescriptive, like this is what I'm working on right now. And I don't have to do everything. I'm just going to do this one practice every day for a little while. And so when we start to look at like elementally and working with the 5 elements, and that's from Taoism and Chinese energetic medicine, looking at metal, water, wood, fire, and earth, which might be a little bit different from, just working with the 4 elements. So it takes a minute to, learn about them. But when we start to tune into those elements in our body and we see the correspondences between the organ systems, the energies, the emotions, the sensations, temperatures, expansion and contraction energies, and we can start to look at where we are right now, like what are we working on? What are the elements that we're used to relying on all the time in our life? Like generally, we have elements that are our physical body elements. Like people are either a little bit more wood element or fire element or water element in their body, and their bodies look like that, you know, and faces and things have these characteristics of those elements. And then and often will correspond to the way that we move through life. So the way that we create, the way that we push through things when we're being challenged, the emotional kind of issues that we have, whether we tend to be more depressive or tend to be more angry or tend to be more kind of manic and all over the place with our, you know, thoughts. And so we can start to look at ourselves, look at our health history, look at our tendencies, look at what we're really good and thriving at, and also where we don't have as much energy. So where we could cultivate a different kind of elemental energy that would really support us and help us to thrive more, because we would be more in flow and in balance. So as we look at this, then we can do different practices. We can even bring in different foods or, you know, different things into our life to start to consider. And when we do that, all of a sudden we're in deep inquiry about ourselves. And we're in that deep inquiry of the way that we're running our life, why we run our life that way, and then how we want to cultivate, you know, different aspects of ourselves to be more fleshed out and complete.
Yeah. So to give an example for myself, I can tend to be wood, like making things happen. And have been recently working with earth, which is kind of reaping the rewards of all my hard work, right? Versus like starting a new thing and starting a new thing and starting a new thing. So just to kind of ground that in, the awareness of where you are can really make a difference. And I think giving yourself permission, like, if we only have one tool, then we just think we need to use that tool. And I think being sourced, to come back to the beginning, is a lot about giving yourself permission to trust what you actually are feeling and knowing. And we might be so programmed into one that we can't see that there are all these other possible energies we could live in.
Yeah, exactly. You know?
Or cycle through.
Well, because it's generally where we're good, right? It's where we lean on, and it's what we've been rewarded for.
Yeah.
And, you know, what we've been rewarded for in the past. And I'm also very wood energy. And I can think of, you know, even in my childhood, okay, I'm very rewarded if I am very like, ta-da, everything is cute and adorable and effective and new ideas and new things happening. And I'm always smart. I'm always on top of everything. And like, okay, great. That was great that I got that training and that I can do that. And also, like you're saying, if you can't live in the earth energy ever, then you never come to any completion. Don't
just sit there, do something. I heard that a lot.
What are you doing? Why aren't you doing something? You know, and I emailed you about this and about my own personal, like I've been doing this work for so long, and it's always challenging me to think and thinking about that earth energy and how the earth element is seen as kind of going in between all the other elements. So in between each element, as they're going through their cycles, there's this period of earth. And so for me, it means, oh, wait, pay attention to the moments in between, the moments in between action, the moments in between movement. So even in my movement practice or my personal practice, I'm spending just a little bit of extra time, like in between the movements, in between the moment, from one thing to the next. And even cultivating that could be, you know, in between actions in your day. Like instead of moving just immediately from one meeting to the next meeting to now I'm working on this and now I'm working on that, and not ever stopping, just taking that 1 minute to stop and be present.
I love it. I'm thinking about, I'm traveling tomorrow. And so today I've noticed myself being in resistance to doing anything because I wanted to just be in the moment. So I'm feeling that.
Yeah.
It's like be in the in-between, the transition, right?
Yeah, that's what you're doing. But you can notice the resistance, right? Where does that resistance come from? Is it arising from something that isn't even yours? Is it arising from this training that we have that we can't be in the transition in between to give ourselves a space?
Right.
All right. Because if you think about it, like the earth element, for most of us, that's stopping, celebrating ourselves, celebrating the things that have been great, having the harvest from the earth. Oh, it can be so scary for people.
Yes. Yes. Well, I spent a year on Celebrate. So yes. And, I feel like I have one more thought, and then I want to share with people how they can work with you. The more sourced, I'll use that word, I become, the more I tune in to my inner knowing and give myself space for this, the more I realize I need more space. And, even thinking about traveling and like, oh, it didn't occur to me to think, oh, I might need a whole day before I travel to just transition and be ready. And I think people can resist that because like, that's not working, right? I'm not working. Like I need to be working. And yet the in between is the work. Especially when we're in this line of work. So I hear that a lot, right? Like just people just looking for permission to actually pause and hear themselves.
Yeah.
Have you heard that often, or do you?
Are you kidding?
Tell me about that.
It's everywhere all the time. I hardly know anybody who doesn't have this or who doesn't need to actively work on this. Like it's not just like, it's like something you have to work on, because you'll notice your nervous system gets wrapped up in it. And you're like, oh my gosh, why do I feel so anxious? I'm just trying to take a day off, and not a day off to like go shopping and do this for your kid and this for that and whatever, but to actually take a real day off and not do anything. For a lot of people, that can be very challenging. And then to start to build that into your life where, no, I don't do this at this time. I'm not taking clients on these days. I'm not working in meetings, or I'm not working on the weekend at all. End of story. Or to take week off or a month off.
Right.
Like, why are you working so hard if you're not working to give yourself the space you need to discover who you are? And are you using your work and your doingness as a way to avoid the beingness of who you are?
The space in between and the emotions.
Exactly. And I encourage everybody to have someone in your life who is your permissionary person. I have my friend Michelle, and also I have probably 3 people in my life that if I'm feeling I don't want to do this thing or go to this event, or I want to push off this launch, or I want to, not do this offering or something, I know that I have some people in my life who I will say, I think that I should do this thing, but I don't want to for some reason. And they're like, you don't have to do that. I'm like, I don't have to do that. I don't have to go to that party. I don't have to show up for that event. I don't have to make that offer. I don't have to do any of that.
I don't have to override your knowing.
Yeah. I don't, this person really wants to work with me, but it doesn't feel, I'm not feeling it. I'm basically giving away some money here. Yeah. I have to find sometimes that permission within myself to say, no, this isn't right for me right now.
Well, and this is why it's so important to do this work, because generally speaking, I see when their knowing tells them to do less, they really have a hard time receiving that. because we're so conditioned. And it's so important to be able to know the difference, right? Am I just afraid and I don't want to, whatever? Or is this my soul saying, no, this isn't for you?
Yeah. And I think that as coaches, we've also been fed a very sometimes toxic thing around self-sabotage.
Mm-hmm.
And around how that if I'm not doing something or I'm not feeling excited about something, then I'm self-sabotaging myself. And I actually need to go find somebody who's going to force me or hold me accountable to doing something that I don't want to do. So I think it's more important to really listen and go, well, why don't I want to do that?
Yeah.
Why am I feeling this resistance that's there within me? Because I like to say, like, the resistance is fertile, right? There's a saying, resistance is futile, right? But it's fertile. It's a fertile place where when we meet resistance, this is where things are rubbing up against each other. This is where the friction happens. And friction is necessary to push off and to go further. So when we really go into the friction and into the resistance and into why am I receiving or feeling when I'm receiving or feeling, and what is that about for me? And sometimes it takes a little while to figure that out. Instead of like, oh, I need to override this. I need to override what I'm feeling or I'm getting around this.
Yeah.
Sometimes you shouldn't do the things that you think you should.
Totally.
Like, especially as coaches, I think we're told, well, you've got to have an Instagram and a Facebook and a YouTube and a blog and your website, and you've got to have all these courses, and you've got to have all of these things we're told that we have to do in order to be successful. And most of us are exhausted with that expectation for ourselves.
Yeah.
And you've got to be a great partner, and you've got to, raise your family and take care of your parents and all these other things that are going on in people's lives.
Whew, I feel tired just thinking about it. I really have to come back to the more embodied I've become, the more I give myself permission to rest. I don't even know if rest is the right word, just to be. The easier everything is, like the more clear it is what to do and what not to do, and the more it just works without me even micromanaging why or how it works. So
I mean,
take the time, do the practice.
Exactly. The best ideas are born on the beach. Right? So it's when you stop thinking about your business and you stop thinking about what you should do, and you give yourself enough space to just be like, all right, I'm not going to think about this, that you have the aha that's like the game changer.
Yeah. And then in that space in between, I'm going back to the earth energy. Once it's like settled in, for me, it's super fast and easy then to get things done.
Right.
But when it's like, oh, I've got to get all the things done and I'm going to sit here by my computer, it takes I just let it drag. But if I go to the woods and I'm just like having fun with the dog, and then it's like, oh, I'm ready now.
Yeah.
And it's quick.
Yeah. I mean, I help a lot of healers and practitioners with their business. And because, we got to get out there and do our thing. And I see a lot of times that people are like, oh, well, I have to get all this stuff done, right, on my website and my this and that. And it's like, yes, okay, yes, you're going to get that stuff done, but do your practices, go to the forest, dance, run, sing, play, have a great time. Keep your your voice memo recorder on you. Keep your little notebook on you. Sometimes if I'm out and about, like, I will keep a really tiny little thin notebook, or I'll have my phone and be like, okay, well, here, now I'm inspired, and this is source moving through me at this moment. Like, source is not necessarily moving through you as you sit at your desk at hour number 8. Like, it is out in the forest, and source starts to move through you, and then you record that, or wake up in the middle of the night and write something down or record something. And then there is like, that is the transmission that people are going to resonate with most.
Yeah.
That's the thing. If you put that on your website, people are going to be like, I don't really know, but there's an essence to this that is speaking to my soul.
Yeah.
Because they want that too. They want that moment in the woods of pure inspiration and guidance.
Yeah. All right, Katherine, how do people find you?
Easy to find. I'm katherinebird.com. And I have so many things going on. I have a lot of different.
We're going to put all the links below too.
Okay,
so
great. I think I gave you an opt-in for a 5-element meditation. It's a 5-element journey.
Ooh, have I done it?
Well, I actually made this because I was inspired because I came into your group and did the 5. You were like, let's do this. And we came up with this 5-element journey meditation. And I thought it was so good and fun that I remade it for my opt-in.
I'm going to go get it.
Great. So then that is, that's kind of my Qigong and other things, but I have other stuff going on. I do a channeling course in the spring. I have a business course that happens in January. And because, what I see is that there's a lot of stuff out there for coaches and healers and things as far as running your business, like I said, that is not necessarily
not healthy
thing for us, right? It's, I've done the coaching programs where I was like, wow, this does not fit me. This does not speak my language. And so
unless you do this, you will fail.
Yeah. And then when you try to tell them what you do, and who you are, like really, they don't really get it.
Nobody wants that.
Right.
You can't sell that. Never mind that I am.
What's your niche? Who is buying this? So so I have a lot of things. I have a channeling course, and I do a course for healers usually every year. So I have a lot of things going on. I'm really easy to reach out to if you have any questions.
Amazing. Thank you, Kat. It's so fun to play like this, and I'm really excited for people to engage and get in their bodies. Thank you for everything you've done for me.
Thanks, Darla. I really appreciate you.
Bye, everyone. We'll see you next time.